If you guys enjoy what I do, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free and easy to do. Welcome to my channel where we cover the lore of Final Fantasy XIV. We cover the stories both big and small, the epic and the cute, the silly and the tragic. I hope you all enjoy the ride, and welcome to the Chronicler of Lore. Now that you all know that Golbez has Azhdaya, the Scions and Varshan have a whole list of new questions for Zero. But since you've been to the 13th and fought Voidsent, Estinian wants to know how you missed their whole regeneration ability. Since you ended up running for your life from the Cloud of Darkness, you didn't have time to really study the creatures. There are a few ways that Voidsent won't be able to come back, and since Y'shtola did give Zero some of her ether, she's happy to tell you about them. The more creatures that Voidsent consume, the stronger they become, but their essence merges with what they eat. If the Voidsent loses his body in battle, or fall from a cliff, or any other number of ways they could die, the creatures that they've consumed could escape and become their own beings again. And if they reform first, they could eat their former captor. Normally stronger Voidsent take longer to regenerate, so they usually get eaten before they get the chance to come back. But even if they don't get eaten, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll come back the same way that they had been. Scarmilione was unique as far as Zero knows. Most Voidsent with his level of power don't regenerate nearly that fast. Y'shtola thinks that she understands the whole regeneration thing well enough. What she wants to know is more about Zero's power. During the Contra Memorial War, a lot of people had the power to seal ether of the soul inside of crystals, but now only Zero has the ability. The heroes of the 13th had sealed gods away inside of crystals called auracite, but Zero isn't sure if that's the same thing, but it could be since plenty of people have different names for the same types of powers. One thing Zero knows for sure is that Voidsent can't use the ability. She can do it because she's a hybrid, but if she were full Voidsent, the power would be out of her grasp. Y'shtola would ask the woman questions about the ability until she figures out how to do it herself, but Varshan wants to know about Golbez, since the man does have his sister. Zero knows the name, but she can't say from where. But with him being as powerful as he is, the Voidsent around the castle should know something about him. Varshan wants to question them, but Y'shtola thinks the job will be better left to the Warrior of Light since Varshan seems a little bit on edge. He can accept that since it's true, so the Warrior of Light heads off to try to get information on this mystery man while the others make plans. All of the Voidsent know who Golbez is. His archfiends go around conquering things and eating the beings that are too weak to be useful in a fight. His people are conquering the other domains, but no one ever sees Golbez himself. With this new information, Estinian brings up a great question. How do you get close to a man who is always surrounded by an army? He figures that you may need to hunt down his other archfiends, or at least some people who've deserted his army to get more information, but you can't exactly do any of that until you find a way off the island. Varshan wants Zero to help with the mission since she knows way more about the Void than any of you, but he still doesn't understand the fact that asking for help is pointless. Her services and everyone else's are for sale. She doesn't have anything that she really wants, and she doesn't even care if she dies, which is why she had let the Voidsent put her in prison. She just doesn't care about anything since the entire world is dead anyway. Since she doesn't really care one way or another, Varshan wants her to travel with you all, and when she helps with anything, she'll get ether. She points out that he could have led with that instead of wasting all of those words, but some people have to find ways to complicate a simple thing. She's a mercenary, not a friend, meaning someone else could pay her to turn on you, but I doubt that thought even crossed the Scions' minds. Since a deal's been made, Zero lets you know that she knows of a place where Voidsent who have gone into hiding have gathered, and she knows how to get off of the island. She was brought over on a large flying creature, and they can be tamed just like everything else in the Void, with ether. You all make your way to get one, while a nosy Voidsent goes to snitch on you to Golbez. Zero wasn't lying. With a little bit of ether, you all draw out a giant flying Voidsent and ride it to Zero's domain. It started out as a safe haven for her alone, but after a while, Voidsent who didn't have anywhere else to go started gathering there. It's a settlement full of outcasts, and they're drawn to you all since you're mortals. things likely would have turned into a fight if Zero didn't show that you all belong to her. Since they don't want to be eaten, they all go back to what they were doing. As long as you're with her, Zero promises that none of the creatures in her domain will try to eat you. At least they shouldn't. Voidsent are drawn to ether, and sometimes that makes them make bad decisions. But in Zero's domain, if anyone breaks her rule, she'll kill them, and that rule is no one attacks anyone. Everyone in her domain has fled from one master or another, but you'll have to find out if any of them served Golbez. Since most of them have been to the source, they can understand you all, so the Scions head off to see what they can find out. Zero decides to stick with you, just to see what you'll do. Plenty of Voidsent in the area have heard about Golbez and his great crusade. He had been recruiting strong Voidsent, but he stopped trying to grow his army, and now he just consumes anyone he conquers, which means he's building his own power for something major. There's one Voidsent who spent a lot of time telling the others about the terrible things he saw while he was around Golbez, a creature named Farfarello. The fact that he seems to have first-hand knowledge makes him someone that the Warrior of Light wants to question. Zero is surprised to find out that he had served under one of the Archfiends, since Farfarello is by far the weakest Voidsent in her domain. He hides a lot so he can avoid being eaten, and pretty much only spends time with Serato, another weak, cowardly Voidsent. Since neither can dominate anyone else, they tend to feed off each other whenever they're hungry. The pair would probably run if they saw you, so Zero decides to keep traveling with you so you won't have to chase the Voidsent around her entire domain. While you search for him, news of what you did at Troya Castle has finally made it to Golbez. It's hard for the other Archfiends to believe that you all killed Scarmiglione, until the spy says that you were helped by someone from their world who could use Memoria. That's even more unbelievable since that power was lost when everyone who had it was consumed by the Flood of Darkness. Hard to believe or not, the fact that Scarmiglione isn't checking in is proof that he is in fact dead. He was apparently the weakest Archfiend, but even Golbez admits that no one could regenerate as fast as he could, so if he hasn't reappeared, he has to be dead. That means a Memoriate is still alive, and Golbez wants whoever it is dealt with. Barbarisha, the Archfiend of Wind, steps up and says she'll deal with this problem, but of course she has a price. She wants all that's left of the dragon's ether. Golbez is cool with that, so the Archfiend of Wind gets ready to head out and deal with you all. Zero and the Warrior of Light track down Serato first, which is surprising to Zero since you found him in Farfarello's usual hiding spot. When Zero asks where the other Voidsent is, Serato claims he left before running off. The Voidsent seems scared, but the fact that he didn't act like he normally does means something is wrong, so Zero wants to track him down, not like that wasn't already the plan. Serato keeps running away, screaming about Barbarisha coming to kill you all. Zero has no idea who that is, but when the two of you finally corner Serato, he tells you that she's the Archfiend of Wind and he used to serve under her. Except he hadn't. Farfarello had. The fact that he thinks he did means he's eaten Farfarello. It wasn't because he had lost control. Farfarello was so scared of Barbarisha that he had asked his friend to eat him so he'd never have to fight again. But it didn't work out the way he thought. He's just as terrified as he was before, only now he's stuck inside Serato. Even when you're consumed by another Voidsent, part of your mind lives on in them. Death really doesn't exist in any form on the Void, and Farfarello knew that, so for him to make the decision to end it, he must have been very scared. If Barbarisha is that scary, Zero wants to know all she can about her, but it's too late to gather intel now. She's already there, and she brought her entire domain. Zero figures the Archfiend is after you and your friends, so you should all get ready, but she wants you to know that her people won't fight with you, and even if they did, they wouldn't be all that useful. Barbarisha makes an impressive entrance, and she's happy to see that she didn't have to fly all the way to Troya to kill you, but seeing so many weak Voidsent annoys her, so she starts to kill a few just because, before she asks why you're even in her world. When Varshan mentions your dragon hunt, she finally understands why Golbez hadn't eaten the thing entirely. He had kept her alive to draw more prey to him, and since Varshan smells just like the other dragon, Barbarisha wants to eat him too. Unlike Scarmiglione, she doesn't need to be sneaky to get her meal. Her domain is open, and she'll wait there for you, and since you want to know about Golbez's dragon, she knows you'll come to her. She'll have the upper hand on her home turf, but that won't stop any of you from going. Zero's not stupid enough to charge into an Archfiend's domain, but since Varshan offers to give her some of his very special ether, She agrees to tag along. Instead of giving the Archfiend a lot of time to prepare, you all get ready to head out immediately, and Zero gives you a bit of not-so-free advice. Even though Barbarisha made it seem like she'd talked to you about Ashdaya, trying to hold back to keep her alive will get you all dead. It'll be better to seal her away and see if you can get another vision from her crystal. Not wasting any more time, you all hop on your giant void scent and fly toward Barbarisha's domain. The Scions and Zero deal with their minions, while the Warrior of Light, using Azim's crystal to bring in a few allies of her own, deals with the Archfiend herself. The difference in power between the Fiend of Earth and Wind is vast. The Empress of the Winds attacks you non-stop on her mission to consume your ether, but you prove to be more powerful than she is, and you take down Bayonetta's hyperactive cousin. As soon as she falls, Zero swoops in to crystallize her, but unlike before, this time the Warrior of Light doesn't get a vision from the Echo when she touches the crystal. Even so, that's not a reason to be depressed since you have dealt with another one of Golbez's strongest warriors, and as long as you have Zero's help, you can hunt down the rest, which should lead you to Ashdaya. That of course means you need to pay the woman, but she collapses before Varshan can give her any ether. She's been using her powers a lot, so her being low on ether makes sense, and since fighting anything else without her could prove a bit annoying and painful, you all take Zero back to her domain. From what Y'shtola can see, Zero is fine, but since she is a unique creature, her body could work completely different from normal. There's no telling how long she'll be out, nor if the ether you can give her would be enough to wake her up. You've all been using a lot of your own since you got there, so Y'shtola figures there's only one thing you can do, and it has to be potentially the dumbest idea ever. She wants to bring Zero through your portal to the source. So Y'shtola, the genius sorceress, wants to take this unique void scent hybrid along with two crystallized archfiends, because we can't forget about those, to your very ether rich world. Now granted, if you leave Zero where she is, something will definitely eat her, but this is undoubtedly going to be a problem. Yet Varshan nor the Scions even mention the potential risks. One of the void scent who lives in Zero's domain comes in while you're all talking and wants you all to tell Zero that one of Barbarisha's former minions wants to move to her domain. Varshan and the Warrior of Light take the opportunity to ask the newcomer about Golbez, but he doesn't know much since only the Archfiends are allowed into the man's domain. He doesn't even know where Golbez's domain is, but he does know that the man uses these odd scepters to talk to his people. You're not really going to learn all that much else from a floating eyeball, so it's time to grab Zero and leave the 13th shard. Varshan's guards are still holding their position outside of the portal, and of course they're happy to see that you all made it back safe and sound. They're also happy when Varshan closes the portal, even though only a few creatures had come through for them to put down. Rooms have already been set aside for your use, so you all bring Zero there so she can rest. While she's still unconscious, simply being on the source should give her the ether she needs to wake up, which means all you have to do is wait, and since she looks normal, she can likely get ether from food like regular people. Xenos had unbalanced her ether with darkness, turning her into a monster, and you had rebalanced her ether with light from your crystal. Y'shtola is pretty sure that Fandanyo had been the mastermind behind that little trick, since Xenos wasn't exactly what you'd call a scientific genius. Regardless of how it happened, meeting the woman will definitely be beneficial, even though buying her help is a little tiresome. The Scions think that meeting her was a gift from Hydaelyn, but considering the fact that she's the void scent version of Vothri, who was half scent eater, I want to know whether or not Emmett Selk had a hand in making her too. The world may never know. While you're waiting for Zero to wake up, everyone heads out to do their own thing except for the Warrior of Light, who Varshan gets to go order some food for Zero while Nidana watches over the unconscious void scent. She wakes up while you're gone, and naturally she's confused about where she is. She seems to be having flashbacks to a different time in her life, but looking up straight into the face of a giant elephant woman completely makes her lose her train of thought. Nidana tells the woman where she is and runs off to get you all before Zero completely freaks out. Varshan has already had a meal prepared, and he took the time to switch back to his smaller vessel. The food doesn't contain the ether that he promised, but Zero drains it the same. Turns out the woman doesn't actually know how to eat, which, considering the fact that food is fantastic, is probably the saddest thing about Zero. She's never tasted anything. To be honest, I'm kinda mad that in a world with a lot of different foods, the first thing Varshan gave to the woman was an apple. He could have at least started her off with some chocolate. She's heard some void scent talk about how different ether tastes, but she always consumed things in small quantities so she wouldn't change who she was. She says she'd rather die than lose herself, which she's done quite a bit. She just made sure she died alone so no one would eat her. Nadana, being who she is, really wants to study the woman, and if she stays on the source for long, the alchemist might do just that. And since Zero seems to like apples, she might be able to pair with those. Since she was technically kidnapped, Varshan offers to take her back home when she's ready, but why would she want to go back? There's nothing there for her. But she knows that he will go back to deal with Golbez and save his sister. But none of you plan on just charging back in this time, since the void is way more dangerous than you thought. Zero agrees, although she thinks it took you all way too long to figure that out. You got lucky the last time. She doubts you'll be so fortunate the next. That's why Varshan wants Zero to tell him all about her world, and in exchange, he'll give her a tour of his. She agrees if the Warrior of Light comes too. After giving her a tour of the city and introducing her to some of the people and customs of the area, where Zero shows that she has absolutely no understanding of human interaction and friendship, you all head back to your rooms to talk. As payment for the tour, Zero tells you all she remembers about the Contra Memoria. The world had been peaceful before the Ascians came and taught people how to summon powerful creatures made from their hopes and prayers called Eidolons. They're another word for primals, and you know what kind of damage they can do. When things seemed to be going bad for the world, heroes appeared who had the power to trap Eidolons in crystals. Zero's mother was one of those, but in the fighting she got corrupted by the darkness, which caused Zero to be born as part Voidsent. Despite heavy losses, the heroes sealed all the Eidolons away and restored peace to the land, but they ended up being corrupted by the creatures they had sealed away. They started spreading darkness, turning people into Voidsent, building new armies and fighting wars. Zero and her mother were among the ones who didn't get corrupted, and they fought against the former heroes for years until they were overpowered. When they lost, the world fell to darkness. When the flood of darkness hit, Zero was thrown into the rift where she was trapped until she found a small crack that she squeezed through to get back to her world, only to see that it had become the void. If she had been normal, she would have been eaten on her first day, but she survived. Not like it means much since her world is gone. But this isn't the first time that the Scions have dealt with a damaged shard, and after telling Zero about everything from the sundering to the rejoining and the repairing of the first, Y'shtola and the Scions, who find ways to make already difficult jobs impossible, decide to repair the 13th shard. Zero will help for a price, but since you've drawn Golbez's attention, her price has gone up. Granted, she's willing to accept food as a deposit. Just because she's willing to help doesn't mean things are going to get easier, because Golbez and his two remaining archfiends know that you're going to make your way to his domain eventually. His war is on the horizon, and he doesn't have time to waste on you, but the last two fiends decide to work together to deal with you, which means your next trip into the void will be much, much worse. This concludes the story of patch 6.2 Buried Memory. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe, ding that notification bell. And if you really want to show your support, you can donate to the channel through the link in the description. Until next time, guys. Later.